This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. I have a reminder for you. The Public Song Project deadline is 1 week from today. Whether you've been working on a song for weeks or just hearing about it for the first time right now, there's still time to get involved. Put the finishing touches on your track or just pick up your phone and record a voice note. Maybe an old song that your parents or grandparents passed down to you comes to mind. Pick something from the public domain, record a song, and send it to us by May 15th. For more information, head to wnyc.org/PSP to learn how. That's at wnyc.org/PSP. And happy composing. Now, let's get this hour started with your mom. Mother's Day is this Sunday, and many of us are getting ready to celebrate with Mom, whether she's still here or not. Ahead of the weekend, we want to invite you to take this moment now to shout out your mom. But within this framework, we want to hear your mom's New York story. It could be anything, but ideally something that comes to mind about your mom in New York. Maybe a story of how you spent time with her in the city, or how her immigration story worked out, or the memories you associate with her from when she raised you here. Joining us for this conversation is Vaughn Diaz. She's a senior producer for StoryCorps, and she's brought along with her some of her favorite StoryCorps mom stories. Hey, Vaughn. Oh, I can't hear you. Let's see if we can get Vaughn on. Can you hear me now?
How about now?
That sounds great. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
when you start talking to people about their moms, how does their tone change or their attitude when you bring up mom?
Well, I can say without a doubt that our collection of mom stories at StoryCorps, which are, again, all archived in the Library of Congress, is probably the biggest collection of stories. And it's not just moms, but people who also operate as mother figures,
Yes.
Right? Those can be aunties, can be neighbors, can be chosen family. And I would say that those stories, range from reverence to frustration to joy to laughter, and often things that they taught us.
Sometimes relationships with moms are complicated.
Yes.
What is challenging when you're talking to someone who possibly has difficult feelings about their mom?
Well, I think like any other StoryCorps conversation, we want folks to open up and dig deep in their memory banks for things that stand out, specific memories, details, the first thing that comes up when they think about them. And again, moms can have so many different kinds of roles in our lives as teachers or as guides. But as you said, sometimes very complicated feelings.
Do you have a dear story that you hold about your mom?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to say hi, Mommy. My mother is in the garden in Norris, Tennessee right now, or that's what she told me just a few minutes ago. I'm very close to my mom. She was a young mother. I was born in Puerto Rico, and when my dad joined the Army, we ended up in Atlanta, eventually in New York, North Carolina, where I live today. And my mother, one of the things that I never thought I would adopt from her is how fastidious she is about her laundry. I take so much care in every piece of clothing, in separating my delicates. And I always thought it was a pain in the butt when I was a kid, but now I understand that's how you care for things that are nice.
Listeners, take a moment now to shout out your mom. Specifically want to hear your mom's New York story. Give us a call now at 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. This text, Vaughn, it says, my mother, Nancy Carson, started a New York children's talent agency nearly 50 years ago when there were very few women agents and very few agents that handled youth specifically, and doing it while raising 3 teens as a single mom.
Wow.
That's a great story. Thank you for shouting that out. Let's talk to Deborah from Yonkers. Hi, Deborah. Thank you for making the time to call All of It. You're on the air.
Hi, Allison. Thanks for taking my call. My mother grew up in a small town in Michigan, and she went to Barnard College, got an early Fulbright scholarship to go to the Old Vic School in London, went back to New York. Her mother said, you have to come home and get married. She did. But when my parents got divorced, my mother decided that she didn't want to stay in the small town anymore. Her mother said to her, you need to stay here and join the family travel business. So my mom packed up 4 children, 2 dogs in a Ford Falcon, and we drove from Michigan to New York City, where my mother went back to being an actress. She hadn't been an act. Well, she'd done some acting in the Midwest. But anyway, so we came to New York City, 4 kids. She got us all into school. It was the most eye-opening experience for children who had come from a small town in Michigan to come to New York City. I worried so much about my mother going to auditions over in Alphabet City, which was not chic or expensive in those days. She worked at La Mama frequently.
Oh, nice.
And she basically taught us, all of us, to go for what you want to do.
Yeah.
And as a mother in 1969, to do that was really a phenomenal thing. And so she's always in my head. She's sadly gone now, but she's always in my head when I think about, maybe I shouldn't do this because, she taught us we could.
That's a great lesson to learn from your mom. Thank you so much for calling us. Hey, Vaughn, you brought a bunch of stories from StoryCorps for us to listen to. This is about a daughter, about how she was the first woman about a daughter telling the story about her mother, who was the first woman to work as an electrical constructor for Con Edison. Anything else you want to tell us about this story before we play it?
Yeah, that's right. As you said, she was the first woman to climb utility poles for Con Ed, and she's a line constructor. So her job is to install power lines many feet in the air, and she started in the early 90s. Yeah, that's what I'll tell you. You can hear the warmth between these two people and a very specific detail about what her mother wanted her to take away from being the first worker.
Let's listen.
I was the first lady to climb poles there. They hated me. Nobody wanted to work with me. They kept bouncing me back and forth from one truck to another. But I will never forget my first climb on the top of the pole. They was like, okay, lady, it's your turn. You got to go up. And they placed bets on me. She'll never get up that pole. I was going to tell you guys, like, Mommy didn't do it. So I just started climbing. And when I got to the top of the pole, I was hanging 50 feet in the air. And I started painting my fingernails. And everybody was like, what are you doing? And I said, when I go up there, I want them to know it's a woman up there.
I remember when it was parents' night and you were coming straight from work and you said, would you feel embarrassed if I go there with my work boots? And I said, not at all. I'm proud because it shows that my mother works. And it's funny to me because what I'm doing now.
And I was getting you the job at Con Edison. I really didn't want you there because of all the stuff that I went through dealing with the guys. But they swear things have changed. Do you see that change?
You have people, they just don't like you just because.
Yeah.
But I stopped being afraid of what other people thought about me. I learned that from you. Even people that have just crossed paths with you here and there, they say, man, your mother's like, that's a bad woman.
You stay strong in so many things. And that's why I've always called you my eagle. You don't belong on the ground. And believe it or not, your strength also motivated me and made me keep going.
Oh, that's a great story from StoryCorps. My guest is Vaughn Diaz, StoryCorps senior producer. What do you think that story captures about their relationship?
Oh, it's so good. And I have to apologize if some tone came in. My mother was texting me just now because I chatted her. Mom, don't text anymore. I'm on air. There are so many StoryCorps pieces have these lines that are unforgettable. I love how her daughter says, that's a bad woman. And how her mom tells her she wants to be an eagle because she doesn't belong on the ground. Like those are some of the, in addition to the laundry, the as your caller just stated, all of these different sort of practical tools that our moms can give us. They can also inspire us to reach new heights. So that's really what I take away from that story.
This text says, my mom worked at Interview magazine in the 80s. She had the coolest style and met my dad outside the Palladium Club when he asked her for a light. Let's talk to Marie, who's calling in from Brooklyn. Hey, Marie, thanks for calling all of it. You're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. So the first time I was ever in New York City, I'm from Asbury Park, New Jersey, at the shore. And I came to New York City at a very young age. My uncle had a music store on Music Row, and I just remember being blown away by New York. And then many, many years later, when I was about 16, I just desperately wanted to be back in New York. I just knew I wanted to be here. So for my 16th birthday, my mom surprised me by taking me to a piano jazz bar in New York City, which was so unbelievable because we didn't really travel. My parents were divorced. She was basically a single mom raising 3 girls, and we just didn't go anywhere. She was working all the time, and it was just such a special memory for me that she took the time to do that. And I have that memory. She's gone now. She died about 14 years ago, but I have such a vivid memory of that night, and I feel like it really kind of spurred on my desire to be in New York, where I am now, raising a family. And full circle moment, which I didn't even realize, I told the screener until I was calling in, is my youngest. I have 3 boys. The youngest is turning 17. He was born on Mother's Day, and he's turning 17 on Mother's Day again this year. And we're taking him to the Oscar Peterson tribute show at the Rose Theater at Lincoln Center on Saturday night. So it's just like an amazing full circle moment. And he's a huge jazz fan, and he's a huge New York City fan. So it's just really, I love that it ties it all together.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for calling in. Let's talk to Sarah in Lower Manhattan. Hey, Sarah, thanks for calling all of it.
Hi, thanks for having me on. My mother came to New York City at age 19 from Omaha, Nebraska, to go to art school. She went to the Art Students League, and she lived at the YWCA. She met my dad in art school, but when she got here and she wanted to stay in touch with her family, she didn't know how to use a payphone. She'd never seen a payphone. So the kind people at the Y taught her how to use the phone. She stayed in touch, but she never really went back. She went from New York to Paris to study painting, and became just the greatest New Yorker. She drove like a cab driver. And I just redid my bedroom, and I just hung up a piece of hers that I hadn't seen in a long time, and it just looks fantastic.
Thank you so much for calling in and sharing your story. We appreciate it. So, Vaughn, if you want to talk to your mom, and sometimes parents aren't the most forthcoming, what are some good questions to start with?
I think, always starting with what is your strongest memory, or can you tell me about a time? Looking at the moments where you have curiosity about aspects of your parent that you've always found curious or interesting. Details are always great ways to sort of start talking to your parents.
Let's talk to Joan, who's calling from the Upper West Side. Hi, Joan. Thanks for calling. All of it. You're on the air.
Hi. My mother was a born and bred New Yorker, very much a city girl. She was also a big fan of old movies. And so one day we were going together to the old Regency Theater here on the Upper West Side, no longer exists. And we realized that standing in the line right either in front of us or behind us was Jacqueline Kennedy and Carolyn. And my mother remarked quietly to me, "Oh, this must be the right place to be because there's, this icon and her daughter, and I'm here with my daughter." And she was just so pleased about that. And we had always identified with them in a way because the year before the assassination of the president, my own father had died rather tragically suddenly. And so I'm kind of the same age as Carolyn. And my mother, always felt like, she could understand the widowhood and everything. And here we were on this line at the movies. And of course, we didn't say anything to them to respect their privacy. I can't remember what movie we were seeing, but that's the memory that popped up.
Joan, thank you so much for giving us a call. Ahead of Mother's Day this Sunday, we're asking you to share your mom's New York story. My guest is Vaughn Diaz, StoryCorps senior producer. We want to hear from you. Call and tell us your mom's New York story. Our phone number is 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. We'll be right back after a quick break. You're listening to All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. My guest is Von Diaz, StoryCorps senior producer. She's helping us with our Mother's Day show. We want to hear from you. We're asking for your mom's New York story. Our phone number is 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. So, Von, you brought us another story. This is a mom and son story. It's about Jackie Miller. Can you give us a little bit of detail before we listen to this clip?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a StoryCorps favorite. I can tell you that Jackie Miller adopted Scott in the early 1970s, and he came to StoryCorps with his mom to ask her questions about her decision to adopt. And here's what came.
When did you and Dad decide to adopt?
We always knew from the time we first married, and we must have talked about it even before that. You know, we're very methodical people. Now, this is something you don't know. When I was 17, I got pregnant, and the light of my life is my father. But he gave me 24 hours to leave town, and I did have a son. I gave this baby up for adoption and said at that time that I will adopt a child when I'm able to take care of a child.
Wow. I just wasn't ready for that.
I'm sure.
Thank you for telling me.
So many times I would say, gosh, is this the time to tell him? But I'm 73 now, and it just seems like such a big secret.
Oh, well, I guess speaking of secrets, when I came out, I remember kind of saying to you, hey, Mom, I want to talk to you about something. And I stumbled just telling you I was gay. And the first thing out of your mouth was, I love you, and I'm your mother.
By that time, I knew. There wasn't even any question in my mind. Just as you were this wonderful little kid with curiosity and couldn't speak well, you know, that was as much a part of you as any of the other things. It's just you. And I couldn't be happier if you're happy with your life. Plus, you help me with my hair sometimes.
Yeah, it comes with its perks.
Yeah. There's no downside for me.
It's kind of funny. I think of myself to be an emotional person, but where you're concerned, I try not to be very emotional. I worry that you'll never know just how deeply I love you and how scary it is for me sometimes to imagine life without you.
That's something I can't make better for you. And I don't doubt it'll be tough, but you'll be okay. The thing that's been wonderful, sweetheart, is that we haven't missed much, you know. We spend a lot of time together, and you'll have those memories.
That's a gorgeous story as well. What line stuck out for you, Vaughn?
So sweet. More than the line, I just want to encourage everyone listening right now to record an interview with their mom.
Mm-hmm.
You can record an interview using the StoryCorps app, which you can download from the App Store or from storycorps.org. It's so meaningful. And I'll also share that almost 2 years ago now, Scott reached back out to us, because this interview was recorded a while ago, to let us know that his mom was struggling with her health and that he wanted to record with her one more time. And what we learned, and there are some updates on that, which you can hear in a broadcast and also in a podcast episode, which you can also find on storycorps.org, is that this practice of recording this conversation with his mother was incredibly precious for both of them and gave them this archive, this time capsule of their time together, but also their deep love and affection for one another.
Let's talk to Charles, who's calling in from the Upper West Side. Hi, Charles. Thanks for taking the time to call All of It. You're on the air.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the segment you're doing. My mother was a minister and a nurse, and I wanted to tell you that, like, two little stories about her, maybe three if you don't mind. First of all, she worked in a hospital. When I would call to speak to my mother, I would call, can I speak to Mrs. Johnson? They would call her Johnny, because she was kind of like the drummer for the hospital, which I realized. And she told me this story that whenever somebody was ever sick, they would call her in to pray for them. And one day there was this only daughter of a couple, and there was this young doctor that was just having trouble trying to, comfort the family. So they asked my mother to go and pray for her. And then she went in, and when she came out, the doctor went back in and came out with tears in his eyes. Her daughter was doing better. Their daughter was doing better. The other story I wanted to tell you, that when we grew up, I grew up in Manhattan. We lived on 99th Street before they built Park West Village. And Billie Holiday's mother had a restaurant on the block called Mom's Holiday. And one day the restaurant got, somebody attempted to rob it. My mother was friends with her and said, well, what did you do? How did you stop it from happening? She said, I cut the lights off, and they panicked and ran out. And my mother said, well, where did you learn how to do that? And she said, I saw it in a movie. And my mother was called a messenger of God because she was a really good minister. She was really into it. And she would have her graduations every year at St. John's Cathedral. And one year, one of her members called her a messenger of God. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to say that. And she had a great name, Edna, like the volcano.
Edna. My grandma was Edna. Love that. Let's talk to Christina from Bay Ridge. Hey, Christina, thanks for calling all of it.
This is a wonderful topic. I'm so glad you're doing it, and I'm going to try not to cry. But my mom moved from Hastings to the Upper East Side when she graduated from high school, and she was pregnant. And so her parents sent her to like a women's home for unwed mothers. And just months after she had this baby and put it up for adoption, she met my dad, who was dodging the draft. And they got together and fell in love. And just after a couple of months, they were like, let's get hitched. And he ended up joining the Coast Guard, and they ended up living on Governor's Island, where I lived when I was a baby, because they had a Coast Guard base on Governor's Island. So we moved around a bunch, but New York City, because my mom was a painter and a sculptor, she loved jazz. She was a real, beatnik. So she inspired my love of art and music. And ever since I was a kid, I wanted to move back to New York, and I did. And ended up living in Soho, just, blocks from where my dad lived when he first met my mom. But she was a giving, loving person, and it's great to celebrate all the moms for everything they give us. So thank you for letting me have this opportunity.
Of course, Christina, we appreciate it. It was interesting listening to her story, Vaughn, is the idea of, you think of mom as, that's mom, but mom had a whole life before you showed up, and she had a life when you showed up,
Definitely. Mm-hmm. And so many artistic moms on that are calling in today.
Yeah, we got a call. The woman had to go. She said her mom was a window dresser in Harlem, someone said. For you, you're a person who obviously, people who know you deal with food, right?
Absolutely.
How can cooking and cooking our mom's recipes bring us closer to them?
Oh gosh, I mean, food is such a universal unifier. And so often when I talk to people about cooking, they point to their grandmothers or their mothers as having sort of held their hands. But also, cooking is dangerous at first for little people, right? You're dealing with sharp objects and with fire. And I think it becomes a space where your parent, where your mom or your grandmother is really guiding you through something that is not only practical, but will nourish you as they did when you were a child.
This says, hello, all of it. Your show is my lifeline. My name is Julia from the Bronx. My awesome mom came from Jamaica in the West Indies in the 70s. She was fastidious about prayer, food, especially fish. She was the daughter of a Scottish fisherman. When she came to New York City, searched diligently for a good fish market. She found one called The Best Fish in the Bronx. The worker there who helped her was named Noah. It was meant to be. She went there for 30 years. She passed 2 years ago on Mother's Day weekend, and Noah went back to Mexico. I still go to that fish market, and I keep in touch with Noah via WhatsApp. A wonderful memory. Thank you.
Love that.
Let's talk to Nina in Manhattan. Hey, Nina, thanks for taking the time to call all of it.
Hi, how are you? I just have a quick story about my mom. She was born in New York in 1910, And when she finished her college, she was working for social services. And one beautiful spring day, she saw that the New York Giants were playing a day game, and she went along to the polo grounds with her lunch. She was all dressed for work, in the elegant way women dress then. And she was sitting in the bleachers, and a New York photographer who worked for one of the New York papers saw her, took a picture of her, and it was on the front page of the New York newspaper the very next day. At the top of the page, Molly Mall eats her way through the hours. So my mom was always a little feministic. She was just always in the right place at the right time. It's just a happy memory.
That's a great memory, Nina. Thank you so much. Let's talk to Linda from Linda. Hey, Linda. Thanks for calling all of it.
Hi. My mother moved with her mother to New York in December of 1948. They came from Bolivia, and where they had fled from Nazi Germany, and they moved after my grandfather died. My mother was 19 at the time, and she moved to Queens, and she moved to live in a lot of different places, but always in Queens. She recently flew to Portland, Oregon to live with my sister, and we figured out that she lived in New York for 77 years and loved it.
Aw, thank you so much for sharing that story. Vaughn, we have another clip you brought us featuring Jose and Grace. Tell us a little bit about this before we play it.
That's right. So Jose brought his daughter Grace to StoryCorps, and Jose grew up in the Dominican Republic. And in the late 1950s, his mom left their home to find work in the U.S. And so Jose brought his daughter in so he could tell her about what it was like to stay in the Dominican Republic when his mom came to New York.
My mother told me that I was the cutest thing in Villa Juana. She called me Chichi. She said, Chichi, tú eres lo más lindo de Villa Juana. And she would give me a big kiss. And I would go to school with this big stamp of red lipstick on my forehead. So she built a self-confidence in me that no one could ever take away. I was 6 years old when she left for New York City. And I remember my uncle said, you're going to cry when your mom leaves. And I said, I'm not going to cry, but I think I've been crying ever since. My mother wrote often about what she was experiencing here in New York City. And as a child, I used to look at those postcards my mother would send. Mm-hmm. I always imagined that I would live in those postcards. So when I heard that I was coming to New York, I was in 7th grade, and I thought I was going to be living in the Empire State Building. But we lived in West Harlem. And instead of living in the Empire State Building, we lived in a basement with the front windows looked into a space where people put their garbage. But at the same time, I finally was living with my mother, and I felt so good. I would say that, without a doubt, she has been the most influential person in my life.
Based on that, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to pass along?
Well, I would just say something that my mother told me once. She said, Chichi, I don't want you to be the smartest kid. Just do your best, and I will always be proud of you, and I will always love you.
Thank you.
Wow, Grace, I am so happy that we have been able to have this conversation. Be beautiful.
So, Vaughn, for people whose mom died when they were young, or maybe they don't have an association with their mom, how do you suggest we try learning more about them, especially if our moms are gone?
Oh, absolutely. We have so many remembrances of moms who've passed in the StoryCorps archive. And, I think the quickest way to getting to know them is by talking to the people who knew them best, by interviewing friends and family. And, on a personal note, I love that story. My grandmother, who passed over a decade ago, was born in the Dominican Republic. And I can't even imagine the kind of courage it must have taken for a mom to leave her son at a time where you couldn't call. There was no text, there's no Zoom. You had to just leave your baby behind with your family so that you could make a better life for him. And I really love that story.
Let's talk to Sarah from the Bronx. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for calling all of it. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing well.
Yes, I'm glad that I have this opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. I have a wonderful mother. She's passed. but her name is Mrs. Lorraine Barbara Trim Delaney. And Mrs. Delaney came from South America. All right, Lorraine came from South America, the Essequibo Coast, and she was a teacher when she was about 14 years old. And she taught everyone, so they called her Teacher Lorraine or Teacher Baby. So she was very well respected in Essequibo. And then she was a Rhodes Scholar, and she came to America to study school. And when she got here, she also was part of the reason why Eze Ogweri, who was a Nigerian prince, came to Guyana so that she could bring the League of Colored Nations. She brought him to bring him so that people in the area would understand what their pride was and where they came from. He actually gave her a name called Shioma, which means a gift from God.
Wow.
And she also wrote 2 chapters in a book called 7 Amazing Days, which detailed Mr. Ogweri's unforgettable mission. And as I look back at my mom, she's just so the opportunity that she had to come to America to study. She was truly an educator, and she liked teaching young people. So Mom, she graduated from Queens College, and then she went and got her master's degree at the Teachers Training College from Columbia. Like I said,
she sounds like an amazing woman, Sarah, and I'm going to leave it there so we can get a couple other callers in, but thank you so much for calling. Let's talk to Pam in Putnam Valley. Hi, Pam.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. My mom was walking along Riverside Drive in, I think it was 1955. She had my older sister and older brother with her. They were small. I was in the carriage. And she saw an old man taking his clothes off by the Hudson River, and she realized there was a little girl drowning. So she told him, wait with my kids. She jumped in. She saved the little girl. All she wanted to do, she said, was get home. She was sopping wet. She grabbed us, went home, and before she knew it, there was a doorbell ringing. It was all the reporters. She was on the front page of the New York Post, the Daily News, all the newspapers. We have some of the clippings. She got an award from New York City for, I don't know, bravery or something like that. She was on Queen for a Day. She passed at 93. My mother was way ahead of her time. She always used to say, you can't afford a negative thought. Oh. And when people would ask her how old she was, she would say, I'm a divine being going through a human experience. I live in God's time, not man's time.
All right, then. And let's try to get Hannah from Summit, New Jersey in here. Hey, Hannah, thanks for calling all of it. Tell us about your mom.
Hi. So I've never called in before, but I had to talk about my mom in New York. My mom grew up in Brooklyn. She was born and raised in Brooklyn. By the time I was growing up, we lived in Chicago, and she never let us forget that we were not Midwesterners, that we were actually displaced New Yorkers. Every year we would take a pilgrimage to New York, and we'd eat Lindy's cheesecake and chock full of nuts and go to all her favorite places. And I moved to New Jersey long after she died, but I know that my mother would be so happy to know that I'm living close to this city that she loved and that she taught me to think of as my true home.
Oh, Hannah, thank you so much for calling in. Ahead of Mother's Day this Sunday, we're asking you to help us share your mom's New York stories. My guest has been Vaughn Diaz, StoryCorps senior producer. Do you have any more thoughts before we wrap up?
And I've loved all the stories that people have told about their moms. You know, we all of us have a mother or mother figure, right? Regardless of how we came into the world or who raised us. And it's so inspiring to hear about all of the ways that these moms from your callers shaped them and how their memories are going to live on in the stories they tell about them.
And we'll finish with Janet in Little Italy. Hi, Janet. You've got about a minute and a half.
Okay, I'll talk as fast as I can. That's easy for me. My mother was the youngest of 9. Her older sister was the oldest of 9. When my father came back from World War II, he and she got divorced when I was 3 months old. And so I was raised by my mother, the flapper, and my aunt, the Victorian, because Mom had to go back to work. She was a proofreader on the New York Times for 50 years. And when she retired, we headed north in her old machete and stumbled upon a property in Gardner, New York, with a dilapidated old house on it, and that is the house from which I am talking with you now.
Aw.
But she was brave. She worked in Alaska for the federal government back in the early 1940s. And then for 50 years, she worked nights on the New York Times because there was like a $2 an hour differential or something for night hours. And she raised me to love animals, to have goals, to be as daring as she was in her life. I'm a documentary filmmaker now, but I would not be anywhere near a person with the range that I'm blessed to have because of the differential between my young mother and her much older sister and the qualities of life and purpose.
Janet, thank you so much for calling. Where can people hear more StoryCorps stories, Von Diaz?
StoryCorps.org or every Friday on NPR's Morning Edition.
Thanks so much for joining us, Vaughn.
Thanks for having me.